Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just like we said with these wide receivers, I mean, your time to make some trades, it is getting shorter and shorter. Obviously, trade deadline is going to be here in about a month, so it's very important that we get these rest of season rankings nailed down. That way you have a better idea of what players you should be buying, what players you should be selling. But before we get into it, go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you play fantasy football, I can guarantee you that you are going to have some fun on Underdog Fantasy weekly drafts every single week that you can get in on the live stream with us. Plus, all of these player props available to you when you sign up with the link in the comment section and use promo code FLOCK. So they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100, essentially free for you to check out. And at the same time, it's available in damn near every single state. Should be it. Of course, if you have any questions, as always, go down there to the comment section. I'll try to respond to as many of those as I possibly can. And let's not waste any more of your time. Let's dive right in here. Let's go Austin Ekeler at 1. With Ekeler, what the hell am I supposed to say? He's by far and away the running back 1 right now in the season. Of course, these rankings are going to be for a full PPR format. You're going to have to adjust if you are playing in that non-PPR league. Hell, just know that players that score touchdowns, move them up. Players that catch the ball, move them down. Should be simple enough. But if you are looking at Ekeler, what's nice is he does both. He's playing in an elite level offense, so we know that he has the red zone upside to score those touchdowns. He catches the ball out of the backfield like a freaking madman. The man's averaging 25 points per game right now in fantasy. The only other running back close is Josh Jacobs, so we'll get to in just 1 second. I will say maybe you're somewhat concerned about Ekeler in that Keenan Allen's going to be coming back in. We know Allen does take those targets around the line of scrimmage. So maybe you move Ekeler down just a bit. He's still number 1 overall, but I think that you can make the argument that he should belong in the tier with these other guys, such as Saquon Barkley at 2. Barkley, an elite level athlete. He also catches the ball out of the backfield, and it does not matter the talent profile Brian Daboll has here for the New York Giants. They are going to score. If they don't have any receivers, they don't have any quarterbacks, throw Saquon Barkley in the Wildcat. He's going to figure it out. Now going over to 3, we are going to have Christian McCaffrey. CMC, I am kind of listening to the wisdom of the crowds because obviously I'm just a clown. I'm just an idiot sitting behind a microphone here. But a lot of people hang out with us in these live streams every single night, where every single night we have over 1,000 people hanging out with us in the stream. If you want to come out to those streams, we have not missed a day in over 100 days. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell. Well, last night, I didn't know where to rank CMC versus Jonathan Taylor, so I just asked the live chat. I said, hey guys, everybody, please spam the chat. Would you rather have Christian McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor? And then, of course, we had a million messages with people going, CMC, 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 CMC. I understand why you'd be excited about Christian McCaffrey. You're going over to an offense where he should have more touchdown upside. I think the touches probably come down just a bit, given how many players you have in San Francisco. Hell, I think you could very easily make an argument to have Jonathan Taylor above Christian McCaffrey, but I want to rank CMC above him if 99% of people in fantasy football would prefer McCaffrey over Jonathan Taylor, just so we have that trade value down. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Nick Chubb at 5. Now, I'm recording this while Kareem Hunt is still on the Cleveland Browns. Of course, if Cleveland does decide to trade away Kareem Hunt, you're moving Nick Chubb up. They'll still use Dearness Johnson, but he won't be as heavily involved as Kareem Hunt is. And Nick Chubb would probably be a tier 1 running back if Hunt is dealt. Going over to our next guy, Derrick Henry at 6. Derrick Henry last week was ranked above Nick Chubb, but just based off the trade rumors of Hunt possibly being moved, you got to move Chubb up, even if Derrick Henry's gone through his bye. And then my most drafted player in fantasy football this year. One of the reasons that if you look at our Best Ball Mania results so far in the most competitive draft contest in fantasy football on Underdog, nobody has better results than us. Literally show me one person. Let me flex on everyone here. But the reason we have those results, Josh Jacobs, my most drafted player. With Josh Jacobs, I would love to rank him as that top 3 guy going forward. I would love to say, okay, well, he's been the running back 2 overall. Hell, he's already gone through his bye week. He's easily a top 3 guy going forward. In reality, if you look at the past 3 weeks, the Raiders have been winning those games throughout the majority of the time. I know they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, but they were winning that game throughout. So I think it's been the perfect game environment for Josh Jacobs. He's been averaging 2 touchdowns a game as well. So even if there's no player in fantasy football that I'm rooting more for than Josh Jacobs this season, hell, I think we have to safely say that we should see some regression. I think he's still a borderline top 5 guy. Maybe you have him ahead of Derrick Henry. I can't put him ahead of Nick Chubb, however, knowing that Hunt could be dealt. But now dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Joe Mixon at 8. Let's go Mixon, ETN, Swift. We'll throw them all up here. Now, the reason that I have Mixon ahead of ETN and Swift, two running backs that I've had a million questions about. Y'all know how high we were on with Travis Etienne earlier this year as well as in the offseason. The reason I'm still putting Mixon ahead of ETN despite the James Robinson trade is the fact that Joe Mixon's in an elite level offense. Looks like this offensive line is starting to put it together. I mean, we should have expected that the offensive line for Cincinnati struggled at least for the beginning portion of the season, knowing that they had one player returning as a starter. It was an entirely new unit. So, of course, they were going to struggle a bit at first. Now it looks like this Cincinnati Bengals offense is going and putting up a ridiculous amount of numbers. I know Burrow had, 400 passing yards this past week. So it's difficult to go through and look at that in the context of Joe Mixon with the workload that he had. I like Mixon. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He has the elite touchdown and ceiling based on the offense that he's playing in. We can't put him in the same tier as guys like Chubb and Henry, though, because occasionally we are getting Samaje Perine used, which is just a little frustrating. But now our next two guys, ETN and DeAndre Swift, we're going to have them ranked back to back. I literally have no idea who to take here. DeAndre Swift's already gone through the bye. Travis Etienne doesn't have Jamal Williams in his backfield. I'm going to go Etienne with the tiebreaker being the injury that DeAndre Swift has had so far this season. I think that you can make an argument for either player. They're both what we've said for years now. Very exciting running backs in full PPR formats because they're going to get every target out of the backfield, because they're going to get involved in the red zone. So love both players. I give the slight edge to Travis Etienne, though. Now our second most drafted running back behind Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker. Another reason we have better results than anybody this year. Coming in here at 11, I think with Kenneth Walker, if you're playing in a non-PPR format, you move him above Swift. You move him above Etienne. The issue with Kenneth Walker, even if he's my most drafted player in fantasy besides Josh Jacobs, we have to be realistic in that he's never going to catch the ball out of the backfield. If he's never going to catch the ball out of the backfield, hard to rank him above those guys that can easily get to 5-6 targets a game. Now our next guy, Dameon Pierce. Player that I wish I had in more leagues. Trust me, I 100% wish we had Dameon Pierce in more leagues than we do. I know some people are worried based on this past week where the Raiders just rolled the Houston Texans. Hell, if you like Dameon Pierce, it's not because you like the Houston Texans offense. It's because you like the running back. You like the workload that he has as well. I think that he's comparable to our next two guys in Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook. We're going to throw the veterans here at the end of the tier. I'm going to use age as a tiebreaker for these players. And then I think they're going to be a little bit more susceptible to injury compared to someone like Dameon Pierce, compared to someone like Kenneth Walker. With Alvin Kamara, if we're looking at our weekly rankings, in the short term, I'm going to rank Alvin Kamara significantly higher than this. Y'all know we had Alvin Kamara as that buy low running back for God knows how long at the beginning of the season. However, I think in the long term, and I repeat, the long term here, if you get Jameis back in, if you get Thomas back in, if you get Jarvis back in, all of a sudden that'll be a situation that maybe you just have to be somewhat concerned that the usage with Alvin Kamara isn't going to be nearly as good as what it has been. So I think we have to move Kamara behind the younger players for a couple of those reasons. And looking at Dalvin Cook, I know a lot of people are panicking on Dalvin. Dalvin's already gone through the bye. Dalvin has a lot going for him, but he has a lot of red flags as well. Hard to speak too much on him. I will tell you, if you were trying to trade away Dalvin Cook, based on those live streams we have every single night, based on the thousands of questions I answer every single day, going to be very difficult to move Dalvin Cook. Nobody wants Dalvin Cook at this point. But now our next guy who legitimately everybody and their mom would die to have on their fantasy team, Ramondre Stevenson. With Ramondre Stevenson, everybody is so damn excited because this past week, even with Damian Harris coming back in, Damian Harris had a total of 9 snaps played. It looks like it's Ramondre's job. It looks like Ramondre is just crushing here. 100% that has been the case over the past 3 weeks. Ramondre Stevenson's been a locked and loaded top 12 running back. I will be a little bit hesitant to rank him that way, however, just knowing that you are looking at a player that was in the perfect game environment for him to excel this past week. We know he's the better pass catcher. We've always known that. So, of course, when the Patriots are trailing the entire game, Damian Harris is only going to have 9 snaps. I think you have to be a little bit more concerned going forward. Still a very exciting guy. And I know we had him as a sell high player and people hate to hear that, but please keep in mind, I answer thousands of questions every single day on live streams here. and I see that people are willing to go through and willing to trade Jonathan Taylor for Ramondre Stevenson and a running back too, and I think at that price point, just way too crazy. Now our next guy in this tier, Leonard Fournette. Can't really speak on Fournette too much. I'm recording this right before the Thursday night game, so maybe Leonard Fournette was a top 3 running back, and people are going down there to that comment section to go, oh my gosh, Mason, you are a clown. You have no idea what you're talking about. That may be true, but just know I'm ranking Leonard Fournette here without knowledge of what he did on Thursday night. I will say I'm concerned with how this offense has trended. I think Brady's going to have enough passing volume where Godwin, Evans are going to be fine. However, specifically with Fournette, I think the touchdown ceiling may be capped, and Rachaad White has looked very good. Rachaad White has looked good. But now going over to our next guy, Aaron Jones at 17. Said not to sell Aaron Jones last week because he was coming off a performance against the Jets where the man had what? Friggin' like 19 rushing yards. Like there was no way you were going to get something that you actually liked for him. However, now you are in a different situation where you are looking at Aaron Jones as a running back coming off a 10 target performance where he had 9 receptions. He had multiple receiving touchdowns as well. So I think you could go through and look to sell high on Aaron Jones. Now our next guy in his own tier, Miles Sanders. He did throw a player in his own tier, but I'm looking at Miles Sanders going, okay, well, I would never want him over Aaron Jones, Fournette, Ramondre. I would never want any of our players in our next tier over him. I mean, easy to throw him in his own tier here. I think that he is a player that would be significantly more exciting if you did not have Jalen Hurts vulturing rushing touchdowns, if you did not have Kenneth Walker and freaking Boston Scott stealing some of these as well. Now, our next tier is going to be led off with James Conner, an interesting buy low running back, just knowing that I think this Arizona Cardinals offense should be better going forward. Had a question in the live stream last night where someone was worried about Benjamin having a continued role here with James Conner coming back. I 100% think that, yeah, Benjamin is going to have that continued role. It's not like James Conner is going to be prime Ezekiel Elliott. It's not like James Conner is going to be prime Dalvin Cook. I think that Conner is a running back that's used in the red zone. He's had a role as a pass catcher. I think what you see with Benjamin, who's been great in the absence of James Conner, is he comes in and he steps in and he takes both his own role that he had previously, as well as the role from Darrell Williams. I think he gets concentrated from being a 3-man backfield to a 2-man backfield. Conner could be a buy low guy. Now our next player, Najee Harris at 20. Najee and David Montgomery back to back here. I mean, we called Najee Harris. Oh my gosh, I wish we could go back and just highlight all the things we got right. We called Najee Harris a wasted round 1 pick when you could get David Montgomery 5 rounds later when they're the same guy. They're unathletic, but they're going to get a ton of touches. They're going to catch the ball. They're in piss poor offenses. I think they're essentially the same here. Going to have them right back to back. And our last guy, Raheem Mostert at 22. Mostert's like a 30-year-old running back that has like 1 game in his entire NFL career with 20 or more carries. Wasn't a massive fan of Mostert coming into the season. Hard to ignore what he's done though. Hard to ignore the upcoming schedule he has as well. I think maybe this is a player that you would want to hold on to and maybe see if we can flip him for a profit after he starts crushing these teams like the Detroit Lions. But now dropping down to our next here, we're going to go Devin Singletary, 23. Devin Singletary, before his bye, had been a top 5 running back in the NFL in snaps. But despite being a top 5 running back in the NFL in snaps, while playing in the NFL's best offense, the man just can't score fantasy points. He's not hyper athletic. He's not a great pass catcher. And when they're in the red zone, hell, would you rather give the ball to Devin Singletary or have Josh Allen take it himself? Going to go with Allen. So Singletary, despite being in the best offense in the NFL so far this season, has had 1 touchdown. This came in the receiving game. I think James Cook probably gets a larger role going forward. Now our next guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 24. You know what? No, we can't rank Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. He has to move down. I mean, even if they decided not to use Isaiah Pacheco as a massive impact player last week, still have to move Clyde Edwards-Helaire down to the next tier. Instead, we'll go with back-to-back Dallas Cowboys running backs with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. So with Zeke and Pollard, of course, we want to sit here and we want to say, okay, well, if you are looking at Pollard, he is a must-start running back this week, someone that you can't get away from with Tony Pollard. This is a player that has a great matchup against the Chicago Bears. Ezekiel Elliott is going to be missing this week as well. Now, the question is, how long does Ezekiel Elliott miss? This is a very serious question. Obviously, they're not putting him on the IR. At least the last I've seen, they're not putting him on the IR. And a big thing as well is this is the most timely week Ezekiel Elliott could have this injury because he has the bye next week. So maybe Ezekiel Elliott, because he gets the extra bye week to rest, comes back in week 10 and Tony Pollard only gets one game to be the full-blown starter. Very difficult to read the room with this Ezekiel Elliott injury at the moment. But now dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 27. Like we said, I mean, with CEH here, this is a running back that you probably need to be pretty concerned with the announcement that Isaiah Pacheco is the starter. We've had him as a sell-high guy all season because it doesn't really matter who the starting running back is here. They're using a three-man committee. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott still does have touchdown upside because he's attached to a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. So even though he has touchdown upside, I mean, if you're getting Jerick McKinnon as well as Isaiah Pacheco involved, hard to be too excited about him. Now our next guy, Darrell Henderson at 27. I know most people don't like Darrell Henderson here. I actually think that he's in a pretty good spot. You're looking at Darrell Henderson as a running back that no longer has to worry about Christian McCaffrey being traded over there. You're looking at Darrell Henderson as a running back that no longer has to worry about Cam Akers. I don't think he's a great talent, but in terms of getting consistent touches and a pretty good offense, I like him for that reason, and I am not worried about Kyren Williams whatsoever. I think Kyren Williams is just very comparable to what you were going to get from Malcolm Brown. Now, our last guy in this tier, Cordell Patterson, should be getting Patterson back soon. It's going to be difficult for me to get too excited about Cordell Patterson here. Trust me, for our best ball teams, fingers crossed. I hope Cordell Patterson can come here and crush, but he's a 30-year-old running back, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. There's just not much volume whatsoever when you have Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Melvin Gordon at 29. Obviously, the Boone injury is going to be an uptick for Gordon, but looks like before the Boone injury, they wanted to make this a three-man split backfield in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God. Not super exciting. Now, going over to our next guy, we have A.J. Dillon at 30. I know Dillon has been plummeting, and there will be players that you would rather start over Dillon this week, rather start over him the next week that aren't ranked. You have guys like Donta Foreman, Gus Edwards, as players that project to be significantly better than A.J. Dillon in the short term. But hell, in the long term, what are the true ceilings for guys like that? Whereas you're looking at A.J. Dillon, well, yes, his role has dwindled. If something were to change, if Aaron Jones were to go down, all of a sudden, A.J. Dillon's the most valuable running back in fantasy outside of those tier 1, tier 2 guys. Now, dropping down to our next player, we're going to have Khalil Herbert. With Herbert, I know some people think that he is going to be the starter over David Montgomery. He has been hyper efficient. He has looked phenomenal, 100%. I agree. I think if you want to make an argument, he is a very, very good player. I don't really care. I mean, it is what it is. You're looking at Khalil Herbert as a running back that doesn't have the same team investment as David Montgomery. There's been nothing that shows me that this coaching staff wants to play Herbert over Montgomery. I think Montgomery's still the starter and still a bad offense. Now, our next guy, Jamal Williams at 32. Jamal Williams should be playing behind DeAndre Swift here. I think you can make the argument that Jamal Williams has a better week-to-week floor than someone like A.J. Dillon. However, the question is, if DeAndre Swift goes down, what is Jamal Williams? He's a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1. If Aaron Jones were to go down, A.J. Dillon's a top 5 guy. So if we're just looking at the range of outcomes and not just the median projection, I think that's why I'm going to give the slight edge to Dillon. Same thing with our last guy, Michael Carter. I mean, I am going to have Michael Carter ahead of James Robinson in a full PPR format. You'll notice Robinson not ranked here. I think James Robinson's not going to be involved as a pass catcher. I think that he is not necessarily a super talented running back. If you think that he is Breece Hall, I got bad news for you. Nothing close to a player like Breece Hall. So, I mean, honestly, I think I will bet on Carter in a full PPR league. I think that you will have James Robinson as the short area running back, however. So maybe if you're playing in a non-PPR format, you would prefer Robinson. But I think that's all I got for you. Of course, thank you so much for checking out the video. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down there in that comment section. And of course, if you want to check out any of these player props, if you want to get in a draft with us on the live stream, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy with the link in the comment section, the link in the description. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. So it's pretty much free for you to check out. And on top of this, you are going to be able to get into drafts with us on the live stream. It's available in damn near every single state as well. So thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you in the live stream tonight.